right, we're up. This is the Our Town with Troy By, North Alabama's podcast, and it is a pleasure to welcome Tony Maggert, Chef Maddog Maggert, as some of you may know Tony if you follow him on Instagram. And that leads me to think, well, what's your middle name? What's your given middle name? Do you have one?
Oh, Shane.
Shane?
Yeah.
So are you an Anthony Shane?
Yeah, so I'm an Anthony Shane, and only my mother called me that, right? Like everything was just Tony, I guess. So
Did she call you Anthony Shane like
when you were in trouble?
when you were in trouble?
Yeah.
Anthony
like
otherwise?
The full name, yeah.
Okay. So isn't that interesting? Like we were kind of just talking before we hit record.
Yeah.
We're in a moment going to talk about how you are famous, right? You've had
Perceived fame.
Your perceived fame.
Yeah.
I don't want to delegitimize it or minimize it by saying you only had your 15 minutes of fame, your 5 minutes of fame, but you had some fame there, and we'll get to that. But we were talking about how you can go through life, and there might be someone that you only remember the one thing they did. You know, music comes to mind, one-hit wonders.
Yeah, of course.
And they could have lived a great life of philanthropy or whatever else, and all you know is that they had this song or they were in one movie.
Yeah.
That you saw.
Yeah.
Or something, right?
Yeah.
Which, of course, completely.
Like E.T. only did one hit wonder.
That guy?
That guy.
Little kid?
Yeah. Not the little kid, E.T. himself.
Oh, that's true.
He was end of the show, man.
Because, Drew Barrymore was a little girl, and she's gone on to have a huge career.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. What
right?
a great actress.
But here's so Chef Maddog Maggert, just to really quickly gloss over your life, you in your adult years you were in the military, you retired from the military. We'll get to you had your leg amputated. We'll get to that. And since retirement, you went to Culinary School, right?
Yeah.
And so you have this passion for cooking. And you've dabbled with the kind of the YouTube channels and things. So there comes along like the Maddog Maggert when it comes to, I think, the way you brand yourself, right, when it comes to your cooking and your passion for that.
Yeah, I reckon so.
And there's other things that we're going to talk about as far as the Korndog Cartel, sausages of freedom, whether or not you want to open a food truck or a restaurant. In the meantime, you kind of work here like I do in the defense industrial base or in the contractor industry here.
Trying to break up with that, really.
Yeah. But most people, I shouldn't say most people. There's going to be a higher majority of people that possibly don't know anything about what I just said about Tony Maggert, but they did see that you changed a flat tire for Colin Powell up in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Can you describe, and this is something that put you on Good Morning America, the Today Show, Fox News, right? All of the circuits
CNN,
wanted your time.
BBC Singapore, BBC Africa, Europe.
Really?
The whole thing has had over 1 billion views.
Were you flown to each of those locations to have like an on-site interview?
You want the
in
story?
Studio? Yeah, tell us the story.
Oh man! So
this is your chance to not have to be shortcutted by a 3-minute segment.
Nice.
We can talk as long as you want.
I've done other. I've done a lot of interviews and stuff like that. But I mean, the story was still so striking. That it's fun to relive that story, right?
Yeah.
Because you're that Al Bundy who scored 5 touchdowns, and so you're like, oh, I could relive that. That'd be awesome, And so yeah, it was one morning I was going up the Walter Reed to get some work done on my leg and get things squared away with that, and I see a guy on the side of the road and he didn't look young, and so I just jumped out and I'm like, cool, why not? I'm just going to help this guy. It's 30 degrees outside.
Yeah.
And then I get right up to him and I'm like, oh, you're General Colin Powell. And he's like, yes, I am. And so I was like, let's get to change his tire. So we did, right? We changed the tire. And more of that particular story unraveled because there was a part that I wasn't connected with at that time. But when I went and changed his flat tire, we talked, and he's like, yeah, you're Army. And I'm like, yeah, you were Army. And he was like, yeah, I figured you were one of mine because only one of my kind of guys would do what you're doing, help me change this flat out in the cold or whatever. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what you do. It's like,
What month was it?
This was in January.
Okay.
So it was really pretty cold.
Sure. Was it on 495 on the Beltway?
395.
On 395.
395. So
okay.
And so he had just come from his house, and he gets this flat tire, and so we just jumped out and changed the tire. So what was interesting was he looked for me all over. He sent staff to go look for me all over the hospital at Walter Reed, and he couldn't find me. So I'm like, yo, like, you're gonna take care of your business, I'm gonna take care of mine, and we're gonna part ways and never see each other ever again, you know. And he actually went to ABC News, and so that was the time, you know, when funding wasn't going through the government like it is right now.
Yeah.
So, and so he went to ABC News and said, "You're not going to believe this, man. This guy, really great guy, and, you know, went and helped me change my flat tire. The Good Samaritan or whatever." And so then that's how the whole story sort of unfolded.
So was it during the morning commute? Or
Yeah, definitely in the morning.
Okay, so
yeah,
you're both on your way to work.
So there's like a Brazilian people on the road, you know.
Brazilian. No, you're on your way to Walter
That's
Reed.
my
He's on his
favorite
way to
number in
work.
the whole world. The
Brazilian?
Yeah.
The bajillion?
No, a Brazilian.
Brazilian. Yeah, once you start getting up into those numbers, you start to realize.
I don't know if that's your real number. I think it's kind of made up.
Everyone's making it up.
Yeah.
So you were wearing pants?
No,
you were wearing shorts?
Yeah, I was wearing shorts and a sweatshirt. You know, it's like, it's warm in the car. I'm going to go from the car to the hospital.
Right.
You know, I've got one leg, so only one leg kind of gets cold, so it can just suck it up. You know?
Do you think there was any part of him that felt embarrassed that he couldn't change his own flat tire?
No, he could. Let me tell you. At 81 years old, so he passed last year, and he was 84 when he passed, right? But at 81 years old, you want me to tell you the whole story?
Sure.
You allowed to cuss on this?
Yeah, of course.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, his wife Alma is in a retirement community.
Assisted living?
Yeah, kind of like that. But I haven't really heard from her, but I've heard from other staffers and stuff, you know, as of recent. And so here's the whole story.
Okay.
Because I think it's worth telling, because it talks about who he was as a person, right?
Have you ever had a chance to tell this full story?
I've been haphazard about telling the story, but I've been haphazard and sort of reserved about exploring lots of things about myself, really.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hey, I don't want to cuss on air because my grandma would hear. Well, grandma passed, so it's like, okay, you can cuss on air now, right? So I think I've come to realize that if you aren't who you really are, you're sort of a fake version. You're trying to save other people from themselves.
Just be authentic, right?
Yeah. Be authentic. That's the brand that I sell now, you know.
Okay.
So I'd be just being authentic about the whole thing. So at any rate, here I am, and I'm closer from me to you, right? And so I'm like, "You're General Colin Powell." He goes, "Yes, I am." I said, "Well, let's get to changing your tire." He says, "Why should I let you help me change my tire?" And I said, "Well, you can wait around for a two-legged guy to come help you, but he got a one-legged guy willing to help you right now." And he looks at me dead in the face. He goes, "Yeah, and I could tell you to go fuck yourself too." And I said, "Yeah, you could, but then your ass would still be out here on the side of the road." He said, "Yeah, you're probably right. Now let's get to changing this tire." So we did. We go and change the tire. I'm going, this guy's 81 years old, man. This is like, you know, 4-star general, like, you know, respected by the world. And he's like, you know, he's going to hold his own, but he's from New York, you know, so I get it. I totally get it.
Well, that's certainly a side that most of us don't get to see then.
No, you don't, right? And so that's what really added a thick layer to the opportunity, because normally, dude, big deal, staffers all around, so they sort of shroud him from everything. But he didn't like to roll like that. He's like, "Dude, I'm my own man. I'm going to jump in my own car." Staffers are like, "Dude, the Secret Service has got to follow you." He's like, "Yeah, I'm not into that. I'm going to do my own thing." So that's just the way that he was, man. He was a true man's man.
Right.
You know? And so just really took care of business.
How long was this pit stop?
I don't know, maybe not even 30 minutes, you know? I mean, but he's a car buff, right? And so if you read various things about him, and you got to dig a little deep, you know, you'll come to find out, you know, he's always been into cars. And so after the whole car thing happened, we had dinners together, and so, you know,
Really?
I still have his phone number in my phone. So,
how far away did he live from you?
Well, I was living in south of D.C., about 20 miles south of D.C., and so he was in D.C. proper, and so not too far, 20 miles, which is like 8 hours on a good day drive. Clearly, like driving math makes no sense in D.C. as you already know,
Yeah.
So it's like difference, like distance equals rate times time. In D.C., it's like if you live 25 miles away, how long will it take you? It's like probably all day.
Were you down in Lorton?
No, I was in Stafford.
You were in Stafford. Okay,
Yeah.
so further.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you get to Walter Reed, and he's so impressed by this experience. Now he's looking for you.
But here's the thing, right? Because some of this got let out after he passed, that he had cancer. I never let on that he had cancer. I never talked about it. I never brought that up at all, right? And that was only brought up by the media after the fact, that he had cancer. But I knew he had cancer because we talked about it, right? And so I was like, wow, dude, I know something that the rest of the world doesn't know. And that felt very special to me. And I wanted to keep that being special between us, because I was never as a big deal as he was. I think maybe he got a little bit more airtime than I ever got, but
Yeah.
like I got airtime when I got my airtime, so that was kind of cool, but I wanted to, protect him.
Did he tell you he had cancer like when you were eating dinner in his house?
No, when we were changing the tire,
Really?
he's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to Walter Reed. He's like, I'm going to Walter Reed, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. So we talked about it, what he had going on and stuff like that. And he could see, I got one leg, like, why are you going to Walter Reed? You got this one leg or whatever. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So then in that he was like, oh, well, I'm going for cancer treatments.
Yeah. Which is right around the corner. The oncology department's like right around the corner from where I was at.
Did he tell you to not tell anybody? Or do you think he just trusted that you would keep that,
No, I don't know that we were ever going to see each other ever again.
Yeah.
In my mind, that's what I just thought. Like look, I lived in L.A., and you're around a lot of people that are famous, and you run into famous people. You could be in a coffee shop and you're like, oh, there's somebody famous. So I've just never really been hugely starstruck. You know?
Sure.
Until I look in the mirror, and then I'm like, wow, look at this guy.
It's funny you say that. I actually, from time to time, I go back through my old episodes.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for, clips I'm going to run.
Yeah.
On Instagram or YouTube or whatever. And I actually was looking at one today. I ended up putting one out there when I interviewed Rosalie Holcomb. She's an artist.
Okay.
And she's heads up a nonprofit called Madison Arts Alliance.
Mm.
She's also a realtor, like in her normal job. But she's getting the arts going here in the city of Madison, right?
Sweet.
But one question I asked her, and I'll ask you some questions at the end of this, just kind of a fun segment.
Yes.
But I asked her, what's like one celebrity, if you saw them, you would just turn away and like be completely like whatever, nonplussed by it. So it sounds like there's probably many on that list for you. Like, oh, and her comment was they're just normal people. She doesn't really look like to them as celebrities. She didn't give me an answer of a particular one. She's like, you know what? When I see a celebrity, they're just human beings.
Yeah.
That's their job.
Yeah. That's
okay. Yeah. More people know them, but like she's like not impressed by it.
Yeah.
And I'm probably wouldn't be impressed by many celebrities I see, or politicians for that matter.
But you're really impressed by this guy right in front of you.
Of course.
Now you're like taken back by it all. Yeah.
Well, now, kind of speaking of celebrities, before we hit record, you said you were sitting in the green room, if you will, of one of these interviews you were going to do. And there was this lady there getting her makeup on. You want to tell that story real quick?
Yeah. So I hate to shape my entire story about this whole Colin Powell situation, but I mean, there's a lot of meat and potatoes to it, right?
Sure.
So it would take up a big portion of the Titanic, the movie, right? So the kissing scene would be very short, probably. So when the whole thing happened, right? I'm like not thinking anything of it, and then I go home, and I just started to think about it. This is kind of cool, man. He did 35. General Powell did 35 years in the military. I did 23 years in the military. Now we're passing the torch to a new generation. And I don't really care what the world thinks and what the media thinks. And that, they try to diminish what this new generation is, but this new generation that's joining the military, that's the folks that are going to preserve all of those things that make our country great, regardless of what people think.
Mm-hmm.
So So I was like, yeah, this is cool, man. And so I just went on Facebook and I was like, I wrote up a little thing, on Facebook, about the experience and he took that and then the media was already going crazy because I didn't really know that at the time, right? So I got home and I was home for like maybe an hour and a half or something like that. And all of a sudden my phone starts ringing, like blowing up. And they were like, this is this news crew. This is that news crew. We're coming to you. And I'm like, yo, for what? Right. So my whole cul-de-sac looked like a crime scene, man. 'Cause there's like news crews everywhere and all these competing, news anchors and stuff are like
They want to be the first.
they want to be the first, right? But I got them lined up, man. I like, okay, 5 minutes, you do 5 minutes, you do 5 minutes, you do 5 minutes, and like they're scheduling all this sort of stuff themselves, And so I'm like, oh, that's cool. Well, I've got to go to New York and I've got to do my finals, or whatnot, and so I figured this really cool technique out, because I was going to culinary school in New York and Manhattan on the weekends, and so I would take the bus up. So I'm on the bus, my phone's still ringing, blowing up, going crazy, and I answer the phone. They're like, this is NBC, and we want to do an interview with you. And I'm like, okay, cool, but I'm going to be in New York in 2 hours. Dude, we're going to pick you up in Central Park, man. Like, okay, so go to your bus stop. We'll pick you up at the bus stop, and then we're going to drive you to Central Park, and we're going to interview there. I'm like, okay, cool. And then CBS is like, dude, we're going to interview you. And ABC's like, we're going to interview you. And they're like, okay, you're going to be in Central Park. We'll pick you up in Central Park and go to another location. So they're just like driving me all over New York.
Oh my gosh.
To do this thing, right? And I'm going, okay, this is cool. They picked me up in a limo,
Wow.
And they just sort of drive you to a new location, and then you're recording. And you're like, oh, this is NBC. And, they're doing their whole thing. And it's very hoaxy. The whole thing is like, you're doing a bunch of B-roll. Like, walk here, do B-roll.
Oh,
say
really?
Say it's awesome. You're like, yeah, you know how it is.
Yeah.
And when you're doing this sort of thing with podcasting in the movie industry, there's a lot of fakeness, and you can stitch it together to create the story. You know, that everybody like really loves or whatnot. So,
I don't think I could do that in a way. Like we talking about being authentic.
Yeah.
I don't think I could. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Look, if you pay me $1 million a year, I could probably do a lot of things.
Yeah.
I just don't see a lot of interest in kind of like creating this fake story.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I get that. So you don't want me to fake
to
an
some
accent
degree.
right
I'd rather
now,
just talk like what we get to do. I'm kind of feel selfish that way. It's just,
but it's your show.
It is.
You kind of do whatever you want,
Yeah.
But it's really kind of a rich experience, because I found you because you interviewed Joe Carlucci, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Which I'm a huge fan of him.
Do you you go there a lot to Valentina's?
Sort of.
Sort of.
We'll say sort of.
What happened? You get thrown out?
Not yet. Not yet. Like I like Joe and I want to see Joe, and I feel like he is a personality in and of himself, right?
Yeah.
But he is such a professional that like his every move to me feels like all of his thought process is towards the pizza.
Yeah.
And it's like, and he's won a lot of Guinness Book of World Records, and he's a phenomenal guy, but sometimes maybe
at the expense of
one-dimensional, because it's like pizza's all I do, and you're like, oh yeah, but let's talk about something else along with that. And it's like, no.
Oh, you're saying from the perspective of having a broader menu, being
not a broader menu, just a broader person.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I've seen him in the gym. And it's like you could see in his eyes, man, he's just thinking about the next move, the next pizza he's going to make. And I'm like, that's cool, man, but like you got to have more dimension. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
But hey, look, I got a pretty big personality, or so they say.
Well, I would say even Trump is very one-dimensional in a way. Or like someone mentioned the other day, like, do you ever see him, like, can you ever imagine him dance or like listening to music?
Well, yes, absolutely.
Or just relaxing?
I've seen him on the Little
Have
Rascals.
you?
He was on the Little Rascals.
But you know how like you just, other than he's either on the golf course or he's in a suit.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't get to see really like what happens behind closed doors. I always wonder, like, when you take the suit off, what are we wearing? What are we watching? Do you really have some downtime, or is he really just? But there's also people that I think Clinton was the same way. They're just always on the go, right? Always presidential.
That's what he does, right?
And that's what floats his boat. I get it.
Yeah.
But you start thinking like, did he go to Little League games? Did he ever coach?
Of course he did.
Did he?
Because he was on the Little Rascals. That might have been his only thing.
Yeah.
You know? And Home Alone.
That's right. He was on Home Alone in the lobby.
Yeah. So
in a suit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
No, and that's probably not fair when we're, again, judging on, we see a microcosm, right, of someone's life in what we see on the news.
I mean, I grew up in Florida, right, in West Palm Beach. So me and my buddies we would go out in their trucks and go mudding, and then we would go to Mar-a-Lago. And you could just drive up there. I don't know how it is now or whatever, but back in the day, you could just drive up there, and security would be like, "Get out of here!" You know, you'd be like, "Well, Trump's in there. You know, that's cool, whatever."
That's just when he was the tycoon.
Yeah, I think
Trump.
I think he still is. You know,
he's had that a long time then, right, Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah, he's had that. Yeah, he's had that property for a long time, but it's a brilliant property. It's a good spot.
But you didn't mention, so in the green room though, you didn't mention the lady that.
Oh, Nancy Pelosi thing.
Yeah.
So ironically, I think that when it comes to media, you have these preconceived notions, right, of what it will be like because you have absolutely no clue. So in your mind, you'll make up a story of it will be this way or that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not into politics or really talking about politics, you know, because it's just not a fair game to play.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But when you have CNN, people will say CNN is more liberal.
Yeah.
And they will be this way or that way.
Right.
And then Fox will be more conservative. They'll be this way or that way. But that's sort of how they present themselves, right?
Correct.
And CNN can, you know, sue me for saying this, but I was overly impressed by CNN. It was very professional. And others were good too, right? But they know their business, man. Their business is the news and how they're organized.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see, like, it was literally like watching ants that knew exactly what they were supposed to do and how things were supposed to play out, and very professional, you know. So I'm in the green. I'm going into makeup, you know, because I got the beard. I don't have that much makeup to do, just the eyes, right? And so, but I'm sitting next to this lady, and I had heard of Nancy Pelosi, but I didn't really know who she was because I didn't really take the time, you know. And that was, I guess, maybe before she had become Speaker of the House. But she's like, "I'm Nancy Pelosi," and I'm like, "Well, that's cool, but I'm going on first, so we'll see you later." So I didn't really care.
Was this like 2016?
No, 2018.
It was 2018. Okay.
Was it 2018? Yeah, around
2018?
that time period, yeah.
Okay. So what's the farthest that you traveled for an interview? Just New York?
Probably just New York. But I was getting calls from all over, right? I was like, "Oh, this is BBC Singapore." Like,
did they do that in New York, the BBC stuff?
The people would just call you on the phone. And the same thing. You want to Zoom and stuff like that, you know. But that led to other things like the Food Network and the History Channel. They started to call me and they're like, "Hey, we know who you are." Da 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 da. And so.
Is that just because they picked up on, hey, this guy on the weekends is going to culinary school? He just did this thing for Colin Powell.
They don't ever think weekends. Like, everybody thinks you're like, when you go to culinary school, you're there all the time.
I see.
And you, I mean, you could, various programs are set up differently, you know, but.
They just thought you were a chef. Yeah,
they just think you're a chef, right? So that was one of the things that me and the wife and my mother-in-law thought was the most interesting is there was so much about it that was so fake and so unreal, and we loved it, man. They were like,
"Oh, hey, they Hollywoodized the story."
"Hey, do you remember Joey when you were in the 8th grade?" And I'm like, "Nope." "Well, we contacted him, and he remembers you." And they're like, "Okay, cool. That's okay, wild. Got it."
Wow.
But that particular event, I feel like it changed me, right? Because I realized at that point, because I really had a tremendous amount of respect for General Powell and his wife Alma, and it was like, if you get recognized for this good news story, you always kind of have to be the good guy because everybody's preying on you being the bad guy, and anything you do bad, everybody be like, "Oh, she's really a jerk," you know, whatever. Yeah. So you just can't do that. You always gotta kind of present this. "Oh, I'm a good guy, and this is what I do." But maybe that's to what you're saying. You know how Trump is. You know, It's like, okay, this is who I am. Stoic guy, like, you know, going through all these legal issues and stuff like that, and he just holds it together. But I mean, I think there's a lot of things you can't deny about that guy. He loves America.
Yeah.
You know, and how he feels. So I don't really know him personally. So
It's funny. I've had one lawsuit in my life, and then there's people that it's constant, right?
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
if you get high enough up in business and such, it's just a part of business.
I
There's
look
going to be a
forward to that
lawsuit.
opportunity.
I just saw, all the billboards for Alexander Shannara.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw he's got some sort of commercial that he runs. He's like, if corporations and insurance companies would just do the right thing, I would be out of a job.
You'd be out of a job. Yeah.
And that it just happens, right?
Yeah.
I often just scratch my head at like, do we really need this many attorneys and huge law firms? Like, they must be busy.
Yeah.
And I must not be. I am not in that demographic because, I don't seem to get caught up in legal issues.
Yeah.
on a weekly basis or
I don't either
basis.
yet, but I kind of look forward to seeing what that's going to look like. How it's going to play out. I don't know
how much money you'd have to spend on legal fees, right?
Yeah, I look forward to that. Be like, okay, this is how much I spend for marketing, advertising, legal fees. But I'm making so much money now. Like, everybody loves the cartel so much, and you're in the cartel literally. So it's like,
So let's set that up by saying, what did you do in the military? What was your job?
So I was enlisted in the Marine Corps, but I had no plans to join the military, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just was like, I was a high school dropout.
Okay.
And then I had some friends of the family that were like, okay, well, we need you to drop back in so you could finish,
Drop
so
back in.
My existence was questionable with my mother. So there.
This is down in West Palm?
Yeah, down in West Palm.
Okay.
And so I did, I had some friends that took, of the family, like, okay, we're going to bring you into our house and, and if you'll finish high school. And I did that. And I'm like, cool, I'll join the military. So all my buddies were like, let's join the Marine Corps. That'll be cool. And I did that. And, that's when I really started coming up with a lot of schemes. That's how the whole Maddog thing sort of came about, which is very interesting. Like,
so you've had that nickname a long time?
Probably a hot minute, yeah. I would box people for money.
Really?
Yeah, it was great.
In high school or
no,
in the Marines?
So a friend of mine was a Golden Gloves boxer and taught me how to box, and I thought that was cool. And then he joined the Marine Corps too, and so I would box people for money on the side, whatever, and I would come up with these little schemes. And really, my biggest thing was like just going to school, right? And to be like, oh, you've got duty? How about if I take your duty because you want to go with your girlfriend? You pay me $50 and then I'll do this duty or whatever. and then I would go and do the duty, and then I would just be a schoolboy. So I got out of the Marine Corps 97 credit hours. You only need 120 to graduate, right? And so I was like, oh, well, I've been going to the school, Southern Illinois, so let me go, and I'll go there and I'll finish my undergrad and then figure it all out.
Yeah.
And then Air Force ROTC, I started talking to them when I was in Okinawa, Japan, and they were like, dude, if you come here, we'll start paying you, to be in ROTC if you sign a contract. I'm like, I ain't got nothing going on. Sure, why not? So
that's cool.
So, and then I did that, and in 2005, I'm like, the Air Force was, they were letting people go and restructuring or whatever. I'm like, dude, I'm done doing this. And all of a sudden, my wife's like, no, you should keep going. So I called up the Army, and they were like, dude, can you be here in 3 days at Fort Jackson? I'm like, sure, why not? So I did that.
Remind me where Fort Jackson is.
Oh, that's in South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, in Columbia, South Carolina.
And you were in Indiana at the time?
No, I was in L.A. at L.A. Air Force Base.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah, I left Indiana when I was a kid, like 10 years old, and then everybody moved to Florida because like the jobs are drying up and
I see.
in Indiana, and I didn't know. I was a kid, right? So you don't understand people having to work, or what that's all about. You're just stoked that you're going to school, and
sure.
You have some quarters so you can buy some candy every now and then. That's what you do as a kid.
So let's, I think it was 2011. You end up, so I've had one other amputee on this show, Clayton Henchman.
Yeah, I know Clayton.
CEO of Ignite.
Was he in here?
Mm-hmm. Is that right where you're sitting?
How did his head fit in this whole room, man?
Actually, we did, it was early on in
yeah.
this podcast. It was episode.
His ego might have been more under control, or?
Was he under control?
His ego, yeah.
Yeah.
He's proud of himself. He's a West Pointer. I got
That's
it,
right.
You know?
We had a whole studio when he was here. We had a couple. One of his vice presidents, Joe Donato, was here. There's just a couple friends. I think we had at least 6 people sitting in.
Oh, really? Nice.
Listening. Yeah, they were
Nice.
anxious, and we ended up going back-to-back weeks because we just didn't get to it all.
Yeah.
We think we covered his stepping on the IED in the first episode.
Okay.
And we never really got around to kind of talking about his company Ignite that he started. So I said, "Why don't you come back next week?"
He didn't really start Ignite though.
Well, I guess it's twice.
Ignite was already there, and then they pulled him in to be as the CEO.
So, but you lost your leg through a flesh-eating bacteria.
Yeah, I got flesh-eating bacteria.
How?
I was in Afghanistan and Paktika Providence, and so I had a wound on my leg, and I had hardware in my leg that broke, and then I had a giant wound and
from a prior surgery.
Yeah, they would probably take all my retirement if I explained the story.
Oh.
They probably wouldn't. They won't look for me. They don't care, right? So
probably not.
So I broke my leg. I folded my leg in half, right? My lower leg. And that was an interesting story in and of itself. So I broke my leg. They rebuilt my leg, and they're like, "Hey, we need to go to Afghanistan." I'm like, "Dope! I've never been to Afghanistan. I've been to Iraq 3 times, but I really want to go to Afghanistan just to check it out, right?" And so the doctor's like, "Yeah, just get the hardware out when you come back in a year from now." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I go to Afghanistan, and then the hardware broke. So then they flew me to a place. They took the hardware out, sewed my leg up, and then, I guess maybe some fecal matter water got in there, and the whole thing got infected, and toxins did their thing, and
And it took about 4 years before they took it? Wasn't until like 2015 that you lost it? Is that right?
Well, they medevaced me out of Afghanistan because they were like, "Yo, you probably have about 24 to 48 hours to live, dude." Because I didn't realize, that I had sepsis and osteomyelitis. Like,
oh gosh,
my whole body had infection going on, and I didn't really realize it. So, but they got me out of there and started doing their thing, and the medical professionals were just absolutely phenomenal. And so in the end, I lived. So
yeah. But is that right though? About 4 years until?
Yeah, they do this thing. They want to salvage your leg. So if you're an IED and your leg is blown off, your leg is blown off, right? But these doctors are like, "Oh, let's try to salvage your leg," and I was like, "Yo, my kids are young. Like, this thing is not getting any better. You already know that. I already know that." And so they were like, "No, we're not gonna amputate." I'm like, "You guys made me leave Korea to come here so you can amputate my leg, and now you're not going to do that, And I'm not begging for an amputation or whatever, but I'm like, but I got to get better. I got to keep it moving in life, and right now that's not happening. You've already done the X-rays. You know that this thing is getting full of arthritis and calcium is building up down there, and it's not going to get better, right?"
So in that time, you had been sent to Korea?
Yeah, I left Fort Irwin, California, and I went to Korea, and then I was there, and they were like, "Bro, you can't be getting seen out in town. You can't get your leg cut off in Korea." I'm like, "Well, let's figure something out."
Were you on crutches? Or were you able to walk?
Yeah, I was walking, but I was hobbling a lot, because it just wasn't a functional leg. So
yeah,
but
gotcha.
I was like, whatever.
Okay, so then you come to DC.
Well, no, I was in San Antonio, and so I was friends with the assignment manager, and they were like, "Hey, we'll hook you up, and you'll go to San Antonio, and you'll get treatment or whatever." And so then when I was there, they were haphazard. They didn't want to, amputate, and I'm like, "Cool, man." Then I went to legal, and they were like, "It's your leg, man. If you want to go to Mexico and get it cut off, you can get it cut off." I'm like, "I'm going to do something because I've got to get better. I've just got to do that." And then the military medicine was like, "Dude, we're going to be on CNN, dude. If you go to Mexico and get your leg cut off, that can't happen. So we got it. We're going to do it. We'll cut it off." And it was a long process, right? All these medical things are long, and so
yeah,
it's just the way that it goes. And sometimes people are just never out of the woods with it. Guys like Clayton, I mean, dude, I love the guy. He's got a lot going on, but he's still got to go back and get work done. It's one of those things. It's like rebuilding an old car. Like, oh, there's another problem. Got to get this and that taken care of. So
yeah,
it's cool.
So let's transition.
Okay.
Here we go, Maddog.
Yes.
So you're at culinary school, and it's interesting when you do research on someone. I certainly thought you went away full time, but it sounds like you were doing it part time, going
Well,
up on buses.
it wasn't, and it isn't part time, right? So listen, when
Gens.
it's full time, right? So if you're going to culinary school, so you have the Culinary Institute of America, and everybody's like, oh, CIA, that's the best place in the world. But Institute of Culinary Education, where I went, is literally the #1 culinary school in the entire nation. Huge shout out to ICE, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you choose when you're going to go to school. You're going to go to school in the mornings, you're going to go to school in the evenings, Monday through Friday, or you're going to go on the weekends, and you're going to be there for like 12 hours a day for 2 days straight on Saturday and Sunday, like making it happen.
Gotcha.
Right? So I was like, so in my mind, I'm like, yo, I've got this really dope gig in downtown D.C., 3 blocks from the White House, so I'm making good money that way. And I created this scheme where I was like, dude, they're going to pay me to go to school in New York, so I'll do that. So I will literally only have 2 days off for an entire year almost, right? Like, and that'll be Christmas and Thanksgiving. Now I'm just going to roll through the entire thing. I'll make it happen. And my wife was mega supportive because she knew that, like, how I felt. I was like, I wanted to go to culinary school so bad. It was like, that was the black magic I had to. I told her, I said, if I die and I don't go to culinary school, dude, I'm going to be disappointed, and I'll probably be really pissy on the other side, wherever that is.
Right.
You know, so.
So that's just kind of growing up. You had a fascination for cooking.
My mother was a terrible cook.
Okay.
Right. And so, no, I'm really not sure what drove me to really get into the culinary scene the way that I am, but I know that when I got flesh-eating bacteria, I started talking to doctors. I'm like, yo, these guys eat out of a vending machine. That's not a good idea. So are there things you can do with your dietary habit and how you eat to improve your overall health for real?
Yeah.
You know, and so I started to find things. I'm like, oh, yeah, there absolutely is, you know. So I'm like, it becomes a very hands-on exercise where you can control how your body responds in the world just through the things that you eat.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's very interesting.
So then you go up there.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty competitive to get in. It is the best, you said.
I mean, it's a school that's going to teach you how to cook, and it costs $60,000, and you're in New York. So then you got to figure out, okay, if you live in New York and you live with your parents, that's cool. But if you're like me, you got to figure out where you're going to stay.
Yeah.
And that was all part of the, figuring things out. Hotel up there costs about $200 a day, right? So you're up there for 2 days. That's $400 on the weekend. Or you could do like I did. So have you seen John Wick 4?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all about the Bowery House.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I stayed at the Bowery House for an entire year.
Did you really?
I did. Room 31. I started out because I didn't know how it would be, right? So I was like, okay, the Bowery is the cheapest place that you can stay, single room occupancy, called an SRO in New York, right? So really wild. Like, you can literally touch both walls with your hands, and a bed is bare and a little nightstand, and that's it. There's no ceiling. It's a like lattice.
Yeah.
So you have this like a prison cell. And you go in there, and for $75 a night, it's a flop house, man. That's what the Bowery's always been. The Bowery Street is the oldest street in New York, still to this day, right? And so the Bowery House is the oldest flop house in New York.
And they just gave you room 31 for the entire year.
Well, what I did was I wanted to try various rooms out, and I was like, let me see if the Bowery House will work for me. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get an adult scooter. I can ride the scooter from East Manhattan to West Manhattan. So it'll be like roughly maybe like 2 miles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll ride the scooter from East Manhattan to West Manhattan. So I have to have a plan for this entire thing, man. I totally did, right? I'm thinking about this thing deeply. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to execute this, right? So I get this really, really dope aluminum adult kick scooter, and I'm going to school every day. I would stay in a room like, oh, I'm staying in room 21. No, it's noisy over there. Let me stay in room 57. No, it's too close to the bathroom, noisy in the middle of the night. People are vomiting and stuff like that. It's a flop house, right? So,
right.
So then I go in room 31 after just like a couple weeks, right? And I'm like, oh, I like room 31. It's very quiet. It's peaceful. Put my headphones on. I'm just coming here to sleep, go to school, do my thing. And then On Sunday night, I would go home, and I would get home at midnight, and I would wake up before 5 o'clock so I could pick up my slugs and drop them off at the Pentagon and do my thing, work during the week. Friday, get out of work, go to the bus station, get on my bus, and then, like, go to New York.
And your scooter's waiting for you.
No, I had my scooter with me the whole time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I took my scooter from the parking garage to work, and then I would go from work back to the parking garage, leave my car, and then I would get in my car and then go and drop it off near Bethesda, my car near the bus station, and then go to New York.
It was just like one of those little Razor scooters?
Yeah, like a Razor scooter, but for adults.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy. The whole thing was maddening, man. I can't believe I did it. It's psycho.
Dead tired all the time?
Yeah, you're doing it, man, but you're so pumped on this thing that you really, really, really wanted to do, and you're there, man. You're like making it happen, and you're marinating your gonads over a stove for 12 hours a day. It's a beautiful thing.
So what's that like? You at Culinary School, if you can just kind of high level, categorically move through how you start at a level. What are we talking? The mother sauces, and you work your way through what? Like, what does that look like? What's the curriculum like?
You said mother sauces. That's deep, right?
That's right, brother.
Do you know the 5?
I thought there were 7.
It's 5. Only 5.
I've forgotten. Like
Bechamel, velouté, tomato, espagnole, and hollandaise.
That sounds right.
And then everything else is an adjunct after that. And I can't believe I remember that fast, because usually I'd be like stuck. I'd be like missing one, right? But nah, I got it.
I did a cooking class. What was it? Cookology. You ever heard of Cookology?
Yeah.
My wife and I did like a class, and our class was the mother sauces.
Nice.
Which was kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And so that's something that I think is really, really cool, is you start out like that, right?
Yeah.
So you start out, you don't know anything. Your very first day is like, here are your knives, and then here's how you don't cut your fingers off. Those things, you're going to be cutting your finger when you first get started, man. That's just all there is to it.
So is it an expectation you don't really, no prerequisite required?
No.
Okay.
And some people did have mad skills coming in, right? And then some people had no clue. Other people had just various levels, of understanding, but it totally does not matter, right? Like, you literally have to get into the mindset of, I'm going to literally fight Mike Tyson. Today is training day 1. And you're just going to train your way through it, and everybody's the same, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like you said, right? So you're going to do your mother sauces, and then you're going to build on that, and then you're going to start doing some stuff, some eggs, and you'll go through various, cooking phases and cooking different things and how you time that. And so I loved it, right? So this is just me, Tony Maggert, right? Deployed to Iraq 3 times, Afghanistan twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Been to Baghdad. I was part of the kickoff party of 2003 going into Iraq. Culinary school is literally the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Really?
It was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Just from what they were expecting you to do within a short time frame?
So have you seen the TV show Chopped?
Yeah.
So Chopped got their idea for doing Chopped based off of ICE's program, because you end up doing market basket challenges when you get towards the end of the program. So you're able to do that. Like literally, like, oh, you could be on a show and be like, okay, this is what you got, make something, put it all together. So
right.
So yeah, so you'll go through, you'll be doing basic stuff, and then you'll grow, and you'll be cooking more things. And every morning when we got in, we had to make pommes per salade, right? And so you're cutting up cubes that are about 2 millimeters, and you're making this dish, is a classic French dish, pommes per salade, and then you're going to be evaluated on your ability to do that. And you just get better at doing that every time you go in. But you're like, by the way, you have all this other stuff that you got to do, but you still got to make your pommes per salade. That's going on. This is going on. How are you going to take care of your chickens? How are you going to prep your stuff? What are you going to do? Everybody's fighting for burner space because, there's 4 of you. There's 1 stove, 4 burners on there. It's violent.
Was there only 4 in your cohort?
No, 16 total.
16 total.
16 in my cohort, and you cook with some of the same people, then you want to cook with other people just to see their style. And I had some people that I really enjoyed cooking with and next to, and it's a cooperative thing, man. It's so intense, man. It's so awesome.
So it's sometimes where they're more of kind of like classroom instruction.
Yeah, you'll do that. You'll go and you'll get the classroom instruction, and this is this, and this is how that works, and these and they'll explain some of the things like the reactions that you're going to get, and, which is absolutely phenomenal, right? Because the style of cooking that I do is very old school, very primitive, because I like where you have no control, right? And I want to prove some things out. So one of my fascinations is could you do classic French cooking but over an open fire? You absolutely can do that, And so I just love toying with those things to be able to prove that I can do the hardest thing where I have the least control and produce a phenomenal product, from that.
Okay. So it was 1 year.
Yeah, about a year. Yeah.
Okay. And then what does the final look like, or the final project?
The final project is the best, right? So bam, here I am back to this stupid story about Colin Powell, right? So so Fox and Friends calls me up, and I'd already been interviewing, and they were like, yo, we got to get you on Fox and Friends first thing in the morning. I'm like, bro, I got finals at Culinary School, man. I got to make that happen. I cannot be late for that. That's non-negotiable. Dude, we'll have a limo. We're going to come pick you up at the Bowery House. They'll take the limo to Fox and Friends. We'll do the interview, and then they'll take you to school. I'm like, dope. If you can make it happen, let's roll, right?
They're desperate.
Yeah.
You had leverage.
Maybe. That's when everything was going on, right? They don't know who I am now. They'll be like, who's this bum? So they did the whole thing, and then I go to Culinary School, right? And then, and so you have limited space on your stove already. We've established that, right? And then every day building up to this, the chef is like, okay, this is what you get for veg. This is what you get for stock. This is what you get for your proteins and stuff like that. And it's like, it's up to you to figure this thing out, right? So then you're going to have your sauces and stuff like that, right? So during the final, it goes like this, right? And so you're all 16 of you are standing there. There are 14 because we lost 2 people, man. They just
bowed out.
They were like, yo, this is too intense, man. This was like full frontal violence, man. It was awesome, right? So the chef goes, and you don't have enough, right? Of everything that you want or need, you ain't going to have enough for. You're not going to have enough veg. You're not going to have enough. Everybody's going to get their chickens, right? You're not going to have stock. So you got to have a plan, right? And
substitutes.
Moments, right?
Yeah.
Of okay, I'm going to get this vegetable, but somebody else already went to go get that vegetable because you're going to get stock. And, somebody else went to go get stock. So now there's no stock, but now you got to make your own stock. How are you going to make your own stock? And, you got to make that, right? Mm-hmm. So then you go, damn, here I am. And the chef instructor's like, okay, here you go. You have 2 chickens that are in front of you. I want 2 chicken paillards, 2 chicken paillards, 2 chicken supremes. I want 2 breasts, I want your thighs. I want them sautéed. Each plate has to have its own sauce. Each plate has to have its own starch. Each plate has to have its own sauce, its own vegetable. And you're going to do a 4x4 plating. You're going to do that 4 times. So there's going to be 16 different plates that you're going to have to do. And then you're just racing to go to get your stuff, right? You're like, what I ran into was I didn't have enough stock, so I had to make my own stock. You know, so you're like, okay, now I got to make my own stock. I don't have any choice. How am I going to do that?
Like a beef stock?
I made a chicken stock.
Chicken, okay.
Right. I made a chicken stock, and then I made a fish stock. So I made a fumet that I was going to turn my fumet into a classic, like a bechamel. That had a fish stock in it. So it'd be like a more elevated and be really, quite nice, very elegant. So intense, man. You're thinking of all these culinary things in your mind, man. I'm studying all this stuff, and it's just so intense, man.
How were you able to even concentrate when you were back in DC at your job? Right? That was probably pretty tough for you to do.
No, all the time I fantasize about food, man.
That's what I'm saying.
Even this day, man, I'm sitting there in a meeting and droning on. I'm thinking about a dish and how to do it, and now this corn dog thing is just like.
Did your performance suffer at all? Or did you kind of get through that year?
I sucked as an employee, I'm sure. I mean, Maybe. I mean, you go and you do the job. I've been writing contracts for the government for a long time, so I don't think it's particularly hard, and I think that you're smart when you just come up, like, oh, federal acquisition says this, and we could do this or that, But I'm like, I just don't think that it's interesting, and my homeowners association won't let me have a missile defense. That's probably Clayton Henchman's fault. We'll blame him for that. So it's like, it's cool, I mean, you've been working for the government, and it's like, I don't think it's any different than working anywhere else, really. After a while, it's just like, okay, that's the thing. That's what you do.
Well, catch me up on where you are taking your passion for food.
Okay. So when the whole Colin Powell thing happened, because it always has to revert back to that, right? Like, that's your Groundhog Day, or going back to that.
It's your day zero.
Yeah, day zero, right? So I'm getting out of the military. I'm done. I'm like, dude, I've given 23 years and a leg to the military. I'm out. You're not going to get promoted. Got it. Northrop Grumman calls me out. They're like, we know who you are. We got your resume. We've seen your stuff. We know the kind of character you've got. You'd be a great fit for Northrop Grumman. But here I am. I work for a company for 6 months, and they really just used me for my resume. They're like, yo, you got all this experience. We'll win a new contract. We'll use your name in our contract. And then we won the contract. And bye-bye, Tony. We don't need you anymore. So that lasted.
From your prior military experience?
My contracting experience.
Your contracting,
right?
okay.
So they're like, hey, we need a guy who has a lot of contracting experience and has a clearance and da-da-da-da-da. All that business, right? So
okay.
So they use me for my resume. I break up with them. Northrop Grumman's like, we got this cool gig down in Huntsville doing foreign military sales. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, man. I love that world, man. So let's do that. I was ready to bounce from D.C. anyways because traffic was a nightmare. And so I'm sorry, Washington, D.C. I don't pay for my Easy Pass anymore because I don't need you guys, right? So
I spent $1,500 a year.
Bro.
Because I was going all the way out past Leesburg on the Greenway.
Ugh.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's a nightmare, man.
Oh, it's awful. It's a rat race.
These are memories. These are like, yo, I love HSV, right?
That's right.
So I'm here, baby. So I do my thing and I go to culinary school and I'm getting seduced by money a little bit, right? Because it's easy to make good money here in Huntsville. If you got a solid background, you can make good money. And I know what corporate would be like, so I just wanted to experience that. I wanted to see what it felt like, right? So I did that, and then Northrop goes through some changes or whatever, and then people start calling me, as they do on LinkedIn all the time, and like, hey, we give you a great opportunity. But now you kind of realize it, like, dude, they're all the same. So after 4 years, it's like, dude, what you're giving me is no different, man. It's the same thing.
Okay.
It's not going to be awesome. Let's just chalk that up right now.
Right.
Right. But you're not doing that thing that you're passionate about. But you're afraid, too, because you're like, oh, well, would I make it if I went out and had my own restaurant or had my own food truck or any of these sorts of things, right? So this last November, the company that I was working for was like, yeah, things aren't really working out. I'm like, dude, that's the lamest excuse ever, man. Like, you don't have the intestinal fortitude to tell me what really is going on. How about leadership didn't know what they wanted when they hired me, and they still don't know what they want, and you have no direction, and you have a program that is behind schedule and over budget, but you think that you're going to save $1 billion program by firing somebody who makes a little more than $150,000.
Yeah.
So obviously you're not really qualified to teach economics because you don't know how it works. And I'm the guy who's giving you ideas on how to save this company because I understand contract mechanisms that will make you better. But that's different to you, and you just want to do it the same way you've been doing it, which puts you right where you are right now. Cool. Then we're going to break up. We're not going to see each other again. I'm cool with that. The CEO was like, he was like taken back by this whole thing. I wasn't going to get angry. I'm like, dude, you guys.
Oh, you were telling them this?
Yeah, I'm told the CEO this stuff.
Yeah.
And by the way, yeah, I'm still going on a cruise to the Mediterranean, and now I'm pumped about it because I don't have to deal with you guys, and my mind's going to be freed, and I don't have to come back to you losers. That did happen.
Did you tell him that? In so many words.
In so many words.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, because I'm going to the Mediterranean anyway, so it's going to be awesome. And it was, man. It totally, totally was. Because I saw people that were like, we're not in the United States, man. We're not in that rat race. Like, yeah, we take care of our olive trees. That's what our family's been doing for 8 generations. And that's inspiring, you know?
Mm-hmm.
In the U.S., we get so caught up in this thing that we do, and we got to chase money, and it's like, for what? You know. So going back to what you said, maybe you need to reevaluate your standards and what it really means to you. So when I pulled up in your driveway, I mean, you didn't have any My Box out there. or Lambos. They're probably in the
No.
garage. I got that.
No.
Right. You're a big deal. Right.
I got a Volkswagen.
Feet up, man.
My wife drives a truck.
Yeah. Nice. So it's like, yeah, so just sort of lower your standard, you know, like, and so me and my wife, you know, we've like done that, live within our means. And now here we are, we made some good decisions.
Yeah.
And we're like, yo, now we got some coin in our pocket and we can make alternate decisions. So me and my son, like just last night, we're like, dude, let's go to Cuba this summer.
There you go.
Gonna go to Cuba. Why not?
Can you do it?
Yeah.
Can you travel there now?
Dude, you can go to Cuba right now. So that's what I'm a little bit worried about because there's an election coming and I don't know what will happen. But if the window of opportunity is open right now, I'm going through that door.
A Cuban election. Or the elections here.
It could be a Cuban election. I don't know how
Okay.
they roll in these days after Castro's thing. But there's a window of opportunity open right now.
Cheap flights down there?
Yeah, like maybe $500 to $1,000 or whatever.
All right.
You know? Like, so from here to there, it's like $1,000.
Sure, it's beautiful.
Back. Yeah. Dude, there's tons of beautiful places all over the world, man. I'm not going for fancy. I want to be boots on the ground. I grew up north of Miami, man. I want to hear some Afro-Cuban jazz, like just like when I was a kid. Yeah.
Well, Miami is North Cuba.
It is, man. It's cool. It's that way, you know. I love it, you know.
And you've been to 70 countries.
70 different countries.
70.
Yeah, 70. So I'm like, yo, let me get Thick Cuba in there. Had that be 71.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it.
So what's on? Any trepidation? I know that. Let's talk about the Korndog Cartel. Let's talk about that.
About the cartel. I'm sure viewers are listening. The FBI, if you want to hear about some cartel action, it's going to be open kimono from here on out, right? Because I haven't posted a lot on Facebook. I post a little bit of stuff on Instagram, like here's some food that I've made or whatever. But I've never gone guns blazing and really put myself out there, right? And I'm like, but that's really who I am, you know? It's like I want to put myself out there and be like, dude, I would beat the brakes off of Anthony Bourdain. I want anybody who heard me say that to come back and tell me how you believe that that's not true, right? So Anthony Bourdain, in his books and in his little stories, like, yeah, I was in Beirut up in my hotel, and, you know, there was a war going on and people were shooting. I'm like, bro, you're a pussy. I would go in Beirut, be on the streets, and I'd be cooking on the streets, man. I don't give a shit what's going on, man. I got that. Because I've been in downtown Baghdad when there's chaos going on. Cool, meeting with the people. You know, that's just the way that it works. So, you know, and Anthony Bourdain's stories are great. But listen, all my chef instructors work with Anthony Bourdain. And just like he says in his book, he was no better than a line cook, you know. And I believe that to be true because they're like, yeah, I've cooked with Anthony. He's not that good.
He just marketed himself well.
He was in a good place, had a good opportunity. His mother worked for a publisher, and his mother was the one who pushed to get his book published for Kitchen Confidential. And I'll always think that Kitchen Confidential is a great book. I think that he's a great writer. I think that he's an asshole for hanging himself because he had a lot to offer the world, and I think he could have continued on. You know, so I feel like my feelings towards Anthony Bourdain are a little differential because I really respected the guy, you know, and everything that I've read about him. And I really wish I could have just met him and, you know, thrown down in the kitchen with him to see how he operated. I mean, you know, I probably wouldn't have wanted to do heroin with him, you know, but that was just not my bag, you know?
Yeah.
So it would have been cool, but it's really weird that there was a time when chefs were chefs and you didn't really care who those guys were. But then back in the day at our age, right, Dom DeLuise comes on the scene and he starts doing his thing. And then these people start to come about and they become these rock stars just because they can cook, which is really, really weird to me.
Who's the BAM guy? BAM!
Emeril Lagasse.
Emeril, yeah.
Emeril Lagasse, right?
Yeah.
But you have a whole lot of other people out there, but you really have to follow the food scene and really be into it to be like, dude, these are the sexiest beasts out there. You know, like, and so when you follow like restaurants like El Bulli, which is gone, Noma, which is gone now, but is retransforming itself into something different. I don't know what that's going to mean. Like, these are the folks that I really follow, right? So you really got to be into this culinary scene to like follow these people that are just literally gods, you know, when it comes to food, you know, and so a lot of the folks that are on Chopped, you know, went to the Institute of Culinary Education and some went to CIA, you know, so.
Okay.
beat Bobby Flay. Bobby Flay, ICE graduate. Huge shout out, ICE.
Is
right?
Guy Fieri a graduate of one of those?
Do I have to talk about Guy Fieri right now?
Please tell me what you think.
So,
Just a good haircut and stylist and
no. And I hope he tries to sue me because I have very little to offer, right? I've been on the History Channel. The people that are on the History Channel were like, I will never work with Guy Fieri ever again.
Really?
The guy's a raging asshole. I mean, but here's his story, right? He is in Las Vegas, goes to school for hospitality management, doesn't know how to cook, and nobody's ever seen him cook on TV, right? But he's on all these cooking shows, but you never seen him cook ever. Show me where he cooks. I'll beat the brakes off of the guy in the kitchen.
He takes the food. He asks questions.
Yeah, he sticks his hands in your food, man. I'd be pissed, man, if he did that to me. And, you know, I've gone to a bunch of places that were on Triple D. You know, they're really great places, really phenomenal food, you know. But to go into somebody's kitchen, man, and just start dipping your hands in their food like that, I mean, maybe it's good for TV or whatever, but in reality...
Did the restaurant say he was a jerk?
He would get stabbed. Yeah, they hate the guy. They say they just don't like him at all because he's a jerk. He's very pompous. But you don't have to be that way. You can be cool, calm, collective, you know, like Bobby Flay. There's this illusion of what Bobby Flay is like. Everybody that I've talked to is like, he really is a gentleman, man. He's really a nice guy. When you're in the kitchen with him, he's a great teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He loves working alongside people and taking ideas and stuff. Yo, that's cool, man. Those are the kind of people that you really want to surround yourself with. And I'm one of those kinds of guys, man. I love taking people that don't know what to do. Man, you're going to come? Let's do a show where you can do an off the air out of this environment, and we could film at my house one time. I think that'd be fun.
Sure.
We'll cook a dish, whatever you want, whatever you can imagine.
You still have your food lab. You still have your food lab in your house?
So the food lab has sort of changed because I wanted to make it a little more like a studio like this, you know, because people really love my kitchen, which is cool. I love my kitchen too. So I'm like, yo, I could film in there, prep stuff in there, bring stuff onto my island, which everybody loves, which was a nightmare for me to make, you know, and do stuff in the kitchen. And yo, maybe you can show me how to do that, you know, how to go live with some of the stuff and reach out to some of the viewers. Because after this last November, when I broke up with the company and went on my super dope cruise to the Mediterranean, I was like, I'm not ever going to do this again. And then the FBI calls me up. Hey, we have this really great job. So if you're listening, this might happen either way, and I really don't care because I'm good to go. I was like, my food truck is being built. So I don't have the food truck. So I'm just sitting at home. So I'm bored, right? I'm like, yo, I'll go in and make that money for a couple months or whatever and have my food truck, and then I'll just bounce. I'm totally fine with that. Because now I realize you can, and literally nobody cares. Any of those jobs that I worked at, nobody's called me back.
Right.
Right? Like, hey,
we need you back.
Do they call you back and say, hey, we really miss you at work? They don't. You know what they do? They do call me back and they go, man, we really wish you'd put more stuff out there, man. More food stuff, man. Do more food stuff.
Oh, really?
Man. Yeah, dude. Yeah.
So your food truck's being built now?
The food truck is being built. Huge shout out to the folks at Trailer King who are building the truck. You know, Patrick Bolaños, huge follower of him. The things that he's doing in the industry is really phenomenal. Really bringing people together. Educating folks on what it means to like operate food trucks and create that sort of like world. And the food truck world really is, it's really neat, you know. It's like carnies, you know.
Yeah.
They're just like, let's work together.
So what's it going to be?
Corn dogs.
Corn dogs.
Corn dogs. I offer caveats, right? Because they may not ever be corn.
That's right.
Because I'm really into food and I'm really into designing food and designing different dishes and stuff like that. Are you gonna pull something up? Yo, look at that.
That one's one without corn. Look on the top. It's easier to see.
That one is without corn. Did you read about that?
Yeah, I just saw it on your post.
Yeah. So in my little culinary mind, you know, I was like, oh, if a batter is a batter is a batter, then I can just make the batter. So the corn dog itself is a batter, right? So I said, what if I did a sourdough? Could I do a sourdough and have that be the batter? Dude, this is getting out of control, right? So I'm really into food science, right? So I start studying this thing, and I start studying a lot what goes on with the molecular reactions and stuff like that. So I'm talking to scientists on this thing and other culinarians, and I'm like, you know, I'm figuring things out like, oh, it would become harder and more crispy if I added corn and a rice in there, right? And so I'm messing around with some variables of making a sourdough that also has rice and corn in there, and it really does crisp up well. And so, and I'll tell everybody what my technique is. If you can go out there and make this thing that I'm fantasizing about better than I can, then do it. But I seriously doubt that you'll be able to do it, right? So I started Sausages of Freedom almost 2 years ago now. So I've got my own sausage business. So I thought, what if you had a chorizo, right? A classic Mexican chorizo sausage, but then you made that and it was hard, but like a taco, and had toppings that you filled on that. That would be killer. Nobody's ever done that, right?
Real quick, are you selling the sausage to retailers?
Yeah, so, and please reach out to him if you guys are interested in sausage, right? So we had a co-packer. I didn't know how the sausage world worked, right? So that was a huge educational thing. So I got to figure out the USDA, the FDA, the FSIS of the USDA, and all the labeling requirements that it requires to make that whole thing happen. You know, so, and there's no person in the back of the phone book that doesn't exist anymore. So you're like learning how the sausage world works. So I'm taking this thing on, and my business partner, Chad Pope, him and I have known each other since the Marine Corps, and we've reconnected. And I'm like, dude, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? We're like, dude, let's do this. Let's start a sausage business, the first ever veteran-owned sausage business in the entire United States. So, yeah. So we're doing that. We got a new co-packer. Huge learning going on there because our previous co-packer, even if you're listening to this podcast, I really don't care. It was like, how does this work? And they don't really tell you, right? So you're like, I can't advance if I'm not getting educated on this process. Like, how do you get your product out there in industry? I need you to make my sausages this way, and you're not doing it. I need my ingredients to go this way. You're not doing it. And then we linked up with a new co-packer because I was like, I need to break up with you guys and get a new co-packer. And now I got a new co-packer, and it's a phenomenal relationship. They do all the sausages and hot dogs for all the Dairy Queens in the entire world, so they could do 1 million pounds of sausage. I could literally fill this room right here in like an hour.
Let me ask you a couple questions on that. This is something I've always wanted to know.
Yeah.
So if you have a package of sausage, we sell them like is it a pound, 16 ounces?
A pound, yeah.
How on earth do you then go to the label? How do you go through the process to say it has this many calories, this many carbs, this much fat, this much sodium? How does that happen?
Sure, I'm glad you asked. I will give you in probably less than 1 minute what took me months and months to figure out, right? So the FSIS is who makes the labels, right? And they say, here's your criteria, and it's really like going to the Library of Congress because there's so many rules and regulations that are out there, right? And so you take your product, you get your product made, and you say, I want a sausage that tastes like this. Then you'll sample. I like it. I don't like it. You need to add salt. You need to add pepper. You need to add lemon, add an acid in there. And then you get the flavor right. And then once you get the flavor right, then you send that off to a third party. And the third party will audit that thing. And they take the thing like a mass spectrometer, and they analyze every single thing on the molecular level of what is in that sausage, right?
Okay.
And then what's the output of that is your nutritional label, and you have a spec sheet. So your spec sheet tells you everything that is in that sausage, right? And you don't put everything on the label, but you have a spec sheet if they ask for it, which big companies will ask for your spec sheet, right? So we have a relationship with Cisco Foods, and they're like, yo, we want your spec sheet, and we want your label, and we want your nutritional analysis, and tells you all of your ingredients and stuff that are in there. So you find out when you go and you look at a package, you're like, it's way more than just, oh, here's the package, and that would be easy to do, and I could figure that out and go online. It's really challenging, and there's really a lot of learning. There's a lot of science behind that whole process. And
it's a requirement you send it out.
By law.
By law.
They will shut you down.
Okay.
So they measure everything that is in your product, everything that goes on at that production plant, because there's a USDA inspector in that production plant, and they're going to tell you, you have set limits. You can only have so much E. coli in here. You can only have so much listeria in here. So when you're watching the news and they say, Bluebell Company had to shut down because they've got listeria in here. it really the USDA inspector who send your product off to a third party veterinarian to get it audited, right? They'll put it in there and they're like, oh, it just barely goes above the limit for the amount of listeria that you can have. A buddy of mine's got a slaughterhouse, Fauquier's finest butcher, now it's called, and he sends his stuff off to a lab, and based off of his production, they say, dude, you got too much E. coli in here. Bam, I got to get rid of this meat or whatever, or you got to change your process. It's called a HACCP plan. So there's an enormous amount of regulation goes on with this entire thing.
Is there also, there's the USDA at the federal level, but is there also state agriculture that comes in?
Yeah, the state ag folks can come in. They usually don't know as much and aren't trained as well as the USDA people.
Okay.
So if you're buying a product like at a farmer's market that isn't USDA inspected, I would be overly cautious about doing that. And if you don't die, then you're lucky.
Gotcha.
Right? Because as much as federal regulations are, and as much as we don't like the federal government, they really are working hard to make sure that people aren't getting poisoned by their food. Right? Like, this is a good thing. But there's a lot of things that people just don't know about food because they're not into food, right? Like E. coli, they say, oh, well, I'm a vegetarian because of the practices that go in the meat department that I have absolutely no clue about. you know where there's E. coli in lettuce, tons of it.
Really?
Lives in there. Yeah. Botulism in garlic lives in there. It could very well live in there. You don't know it, you know? And so they have all these things that are processes, you know, to help protect the general public.
Okay.
And you don't catch everything. You're not going to catch everything. And you're going to get a listeria outbreak, an E. coli outbreak, you know, an anthrax outbreak. Any of these things could happen.
So are you happy with what's going on with Sausages of Freedom now?
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I think it's I think it would literally be weird for anybody to say, like, food and sausages are what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, but it's literally what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I just love it. I love every single thing about it.
So we're the co-packer.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're national, right?
They're more than national. They're
more than national.
Yeah, they're good.
So it's a matter of you get all the ingredients sent to them, and then they know
have
what
all
to
the
do.
Ingredients. If I wanted something different, a different flavor profile, we would go and I would be like, hey, we're going to do this or that, and then we would make that, right? Like, I'm a huge fan of real hot dogs, and most people have never had real hot dogs in their entire life, you know, because there's more white pepper and more cardamom in there. Really beautiful flavor, I think, right? But most people are like, oh, they're ballparks, and that's what I know. I don't know anything else, you know. But if you've had something that's really good, it's like, dude, do that, you know? Like, and so that's what my quest is to make different flavor profiles that people are just really hugely interested in.
But they have all the ingredients there, and then you just give them the recipe. And
then the
order.
recipe is my recipe. That's part of my intellectual property.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, we'll just make it. You pay us $1,000. We send it off to the USDA. Third-party auditor gets it inspected. Once you like the flavor, it's where you want it. It's good to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they churn them out.
Yeah, then they just crank them out.
And where's your stuff being sold?
So we got a lot of communication with a lot of people right now, you know. So we got a relationship with Cisco, talking about Piggly Wiggly. We're working through the stuff currently with Kroger and Publix. So
good.
Yeah. And we want to see where that goes.
So that's a whole new learning experience for you.
Whole new learning experience, right? Because you're going, I just want to make sausage. So how about you learn about pricing? How about you learn about organizing financial models? How about you figure out logistics, because now you have to ship it from point A to point B? How about all these things you have to figure out that you're like, I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to do sausages, right? But that ain't the way it works, man. There's everything else, all the tertiary things that come, you know, part of that.
Yeah. So then the food truck then will be corn dogs.
Corn dogs.
And that's from the Korndog Cartel.
Yeah, the Korndog Cartel. Because I was like...
And that's you and Chad? Your friend Chad, you said?
Yeah, so Chad lives up in Tennessee, and so we'll focus on Sausages of Freedom and moving product that way. And for me, you know, it's like I thought that a food truck would be a good idea, because a food truck is a really, really easy way, man, to like really get your marketing out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to do is totally different than most food trucks. We're going to have a geolocator on the food truck, so everybody's going to know where the cartel is at all times, right? You can have an app. You can go on your phone. You'll know where the cartel is. Oh, dude, that thing is 3 miles away, man. Let's go and we'll get some corn dogs. There will be cameras inside the truck, outside the truck. We want it to be an experience, and that's what I want the whole business to be, is to be an experience. And I don't want just one food truck. I want to have a whole lot of food trucks. So my thought is, and always has been, like, a lot of these veterans get out and they don't know what to do. So I'm like, dude, what if we can create an opportunity so veterans can run and operate their own food trucks?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be cool.
So is it, walk me through the gourmet level of corn dogs.
Sure.
Because I think most people probably just think, oh, it's a corn dog on a stick.
Yeah, it's a corn dog on a stick.
You're going
right?
to take it to another level.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, but you would think that anyways, right? So have you ever had foie gras?
Maybe.
Like goose liver?
No, I haven't.
So in France, foie gras is a big deal. They sell it for a lot. Fancy restaurants would do a foie gras. I would tell you there's nothing more than a force meat, right? So any meat that you chop up and make into a pate or anything, it's just a force meat, right? Anything where you stick meat into a condom, it would be, like a hot dog or a sausage. Ideally, is it's a force meat, So
Mm-hmm.
you're taking this very complicated culinary thing and you're doing it and you're putting a product out there, right? So you can make it as fancy or as, pedestrian as you want. So then they go and they're like, oh, we should make these wieners. And so the Europeans are like, we've been making sausages forever. You make these, hot dogs and sausages and stuff, and you start to sell them. Places, especially in the Northeast, right, where you have a big immigrant community and like they know how to make this stuff. They make phenomenal product, right? So I'm just sort of taking that thing to another level.
Okay. So can you give me an idea of what the menu might look like? I walk up to the food truck. There might be an original, right? That's usually kind of something where it's like the first recipe you made was the original, right? The Tony.
Yeah.
How many other things are going to be on the menu?
So I think there's literally a huge movement going on right now in the U.S. for these Korean corn dogs. People are loving them. Don't have any here in Huntsville right now, but Atlanta's a big deal. Chattanooga's got a scene going on. I'd love to go on corn dog hunts. So I came back from Houston and we went on a hunt for corn dogs down there and found only 5 places that were doing corn dogs. So that was pretty cool. Film people as they were making it. And I'm going, dude, this totally makes sense. You take a wiener and you on a stick and you roll it in a batter and you deep fry it. Like that sounds so simplistic, but if you say corn dog, people get it. They know. You don't have to explain it.
Right.
You don't have to be at the Orion when people are drunk and having to explain a corn dog to people. I'm telling you, man.
That's right.
They're like, bam, I got that. I don't know what's going on with that, but I understand it.
And I would imagine if you can make it just one, next level, then people would be like, wow. Who knew that you could do that to a corn dog?
Nobody knows because nobody knows how to do it because they don't have like what I run into here. I got a lot of people that I respect that are in this community, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are in the food truck scene, and they've told me, bro, nobody has the culinary background that you've got. What you're doing is different. You're thinking on this whole thing on a different level, And so here I am. I'm doing this thing for the federal government still today. But people go, dude, you have this cool background. Why don't you use it? And I think that, like, so what if Picasso was just like, I'm just not going to paint, man. I know that I can paint. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah. Right.
Or all these famous people that have
It's
done
their prerogative, right?
What if Taylor Swift, like her, love her, hate her, right, was like, I don't know. I just don't know that the singing thing is for me.
Mm-hmm.
She wouldn't be flying a jet right now. She wouldn't have gotten all the publicity she got, which is totally awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because her and Trump are fighting because it's like immediate publicity. That is awesome.
Yeah.
You don't got to do nothing.
Right.
And she's like, dude, I'm just Taylor Swift. All American. This is what I do. I sing. My parents, took care of me, gave me some money. I got started, and things took off. I'm stoked for her myself, man. I think it's awesome.
Sure. So when do you project rolling out your first food truck stop and everything and kind of go through that? You're saying it's going to be a geolocator on it.
Yeah, there'll be a geolocator on it. So I have some things that I'm thinking about, right? Because I always think, like, why think small?
Right.
Right? I think, let's think these grandiose things. And I think that's another thing that people just can't wrap their brains around, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you like, why not just connect the dots with things? So I started thinking about it. The reality is I was on a reality show in July called The Blocks, and it's the largest entrepreneurial program for entrepreneurs that is a game in the entire world. The whole thing is televised, right? And so I was on The Blocks, and the way that The Blocks is structured is very interesting. So, and if I'm a liar in any of this story, Wes, forgive me. He's the producer of the show, Messbergen. He lives in Kansas. Actually, I heard the other day that he actually lives next to Travis Kelce.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Huh.
I heard that. So Wes hosts this show. Wes has been on a lot of reality shows, and so the way that it works is when you go on The Blocks, you do this academic thing, and then they go, okay, we studied this academic thing. Now you have 15 minutes to put together a 3-minute presentation, and then that's when you start competing against all these other people that are entrepreneurs that are doing your thing. And so one day, maybe day 2 or something like that, it was, how do you plan on utilizing technology, leveraging technology to scale your business? I said, Chad, it just came to me right now in the last 30 seconds. This is what we're going to do. There are approximately 275 Division I universities that are out there, and each one plays football, right?
Mm-hmm.
And each stadium hosts 80 to 100,000 people. What if we could go and get food trucks that could sling literally tens of thousands of product, and we can get fraternities and sororities to use our product to raise money for their fraternities, for their philanthropy, just selling sausages and hot dogs. This is my idea. Dude, I'm going to pitch this thing. So, and then we'll call them sausage parties. Right? At all these huge universities.
Yeah.
I don't know how it came to me, but it did. And so I'm like, I started pulling at that string. I'm like, dude. So my daughter took off. I don't appreciate that she left. I hope she's listening to this because she knows I don't appreciate that she left me. I can't have tea with her every day. She went to Virginia Tech. But she's taken a phenomenal program and really killing it. And so I went up to Virginia Tech, and I'm watching these football games. I'm going, dude, there's literally like over 80,000 people here, man. I could, if I could fill 10% of this, man, you'd be set.
Yeah.
Right? That's killer. So I think it's a great idea. I think it's a fun way to go. I don't keep pulling at the thread and see where it all goes.
Sure.
Why not?
Let me ask you about the beard.
Yeah.
How long have you been growing it?
So the beard, of course, we have to go back to the whole Colin Powell story again, because everything has to go back to the Colin Powell story, right? So Colin Powell tells me, dude, don't shave your beard, man. That's how everybody's going to know you.
Was that long at the time?
It wasn't this long at the time. So I was really just starting to grow it and experimenting with that, and I had no clue. I still don't know what I'm doing with it.
Okay. Other than Colin Powell just said, just keep your beard.
Yeah.
It's you.
My daughter said, Daddy, I shaved 2 years ago because I was transitioning jobs, and I thought if I shaved, I'll be able to get a job because I was really still addicted to the money. And so I shaved, and she said, don't ever shave again. Your head looks like a big toe. Cool. Got it. So I've just been growing it ever since and been totally fine with it, I guess. So
very good.
Yeah.
Well, man, you got anything else you want to cover today?
I don't know. Is there anything else you want to cover?
Gosh, we've been going for a while, haven't we?
Have we?
Yeah, probably about an hour and a half or so, maybe longer.
Cool. Well, I'm long-winded, a garrulous fellow.
So is your, about 4 years ago, I didn't have the confidence in like cooking. Yeah. Until about 4 years ago, I just decided, okay, like as a dad, I have learned to become a good handyman. Okay. I never was good with tools like when I first got married, but just little by little. Yeah. Enough things are going to break in homes or whatever. Like, okay, I think I can figure this out. Yeah. Now I'm very proud. I own a lot of stuff when it comes to tools. Yeah. I got a compressor and a nail gun. Yeah, you're up there. I got all these things. And then with cooking, I'm like, I need to get better at grilling. I want to feel like more of a man. Yeah. And so I just started watching YouTube, and I've also had this fascination with like Philly cheesesteaks, for example, or like smash burgers. I love high volume, but I also love authentic. Like it has to be from Philly. Yeah. Right? The way they do it. Yeah. And if you come up to the beginning of the line, they tell you these stories, and of course now I think Pats and Genos and Jims of the world have
Yeah,
backed
yeah.
off. But like, if you didn't know what you want, they say back of the line, buddy, next.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they
yeah.
have no time for you,
Like Cat's Deli in
right?
New York.
And you got to have the whole thing. So I've always been like just captivated by that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And now there's all these shows that I really like watching. Sometimes there's no narration; they just film the process of them preparing their food for the day, and they're going to make 100 burgers at lunchtime. And I, like whether it's just maybe a bucket list. I don't know if I'll ever do a food truck, but I'd like to just go off the side of the
I
road,
think you will.
put up a sign that says Smash Burgers,
No, you're
because I
going
can make
to.
a good smash burger, like really good,
Can you?
and a Philly cheesesteak. I think mine's as good as anybody's. And I just started getting confidence. I bought a Blackstone griddle. I do have a smoker. I know you have a cheap way to make a smoker. I liked your video.
Saw that?
I did see that. Of course, I have a grill.
Yeah.
And we're adding more and more stuff to our arsenal because there's this guy, Sam, the cooking guy out of San Diego.
Okay.
He owns a
Yeah,
taco
yeah.
place called Not Taco.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what his claim to fame was?
What's that?
He was on the Today Show back in like 2002.
I was on the Today Show.
Were you with like Kathy Lee and Hoda?
Yeah, okay.
And you get on those shows, and if he's there to he must have had his restaurant, and so
Yeah.
he was there to talk about some foods, whatever, for the Christmas season
Sure.
or something coming up.
Sure.
And it's probably a 3-minute segment, and these ladies won't shut their mouth.
Yeah.
They keep talking,
Yeah.
and he's trying to talk because he knows he only has a little bit of time, and they
Yeah.
keep talking. So
Yeah.
he says, "Can you guys shut up
Yeah.
already?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?" And so he figured he would never be invited back. Well, they loved it. They loved
Yeah.
that he stood up to them.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he got famous kind of through that segment he did.
Ah.
So he launched in, of course, then when the whole YouTube thing came around, people kind of knew that. He's got successful taco places in San Diego. But it's just kind of started with the backyard cooking. I think I came across him because I was like, hey,
Sure.
what are ways people make Philly cheesesteaks?
Yeah.
What are the ways people make smash burgers?
Okay.
And then from there, he's probably doing 2 or 3 shows a week, and we go on there to see what's new, and we just kind of like the guy
Yeah.
because there's a lot of cooking shows out there, but sometimes you just don't relate to that
Right.
host,
Right.
and they do a
like
really
the
good.
people won't relate to me.
And I was going to say, like the videos you've done, and I know you've invested some money in the cameras and the camera
Yeah.
angles. Like they also do that, and
Yeah.
they probably spend hours putting together to edit a 15-minute
Right.
segment, but.
Right.
It's just, it's given me more confidence. Now I love to I haven't gotten really into like the baking because what he does is if he's going to do a burger, everything's made from scratch. Like he'll make the buns, he'll make everything right.
Yeah.
I haven't really gotten to that, but I do like
You can though.
I'm sure I can, and I need to do that. But I've been loving just making sauces and just experimenting, and I'm not there yet where it's like I can just guess what 4 tablespoons looks like.
Yeah.
I kind of measure everything out for the most part,
No.
but I'm getting a little
Don't
bit
do
better
that.
at just
Don't
like,
do
you
that
know what,
anymore.
just
Don't do that anymore. We're gonna
But-
get together.
but
I'm not far.
but I love pushing the envelope. I love having people over. I'll spend hours, prepping food.
We're gonna keep talking.
Love it.
I hope you
Let's
understand
do
that because you're really pulling at a thread now that's like near and dear to my heart, right? Like this is
And the question I have for somebody like you, okay, you've done your research on corn dogs that do well here. Could a proper Philly cheesesteak do well, where you're only offering cheese whiz, maybe provolone, and onion?
on a corn dog.
No, I'm just saying like a Philly cheesesteak. Because now in Americans like, well, where's the peppers and where's the this and hold the cheese whiz? Like, get out of my line, get out of my store.
Yeah.
I want to
No
make
soup
you.
for you.
Yeah, I want to make you that's it.
Yeah.
That's simple. Or smash burger. Guess what? You're getting the beef, you're getting the onion,
That's what you get.
and you're getting some cheese.
And you're
And
gonna
it's
get outta
processed
here.
cheese. Sorry, get out.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
You know what I mean? It's like blue collar working man's food.
That's absolutely what you want, right? So listen, I can and have. I mean, I can cook at any level. I think that I've never cooked in a Michelin starred restaurant, but I think I
Yeah.
could probably hold my own if I were in there,
Sure.
and do just fine, right? But that's what drove me to this whole corn dog concept. I'm like, could you take that thing that seems very pedestrian and normal, and then elevate it and give a different experience?
Sure.
Because I don't want you to compare this to that, because this is not that. This is different, right? But what if I could do it and I can make it different? Because you've had a Philly, right? So in your mind, you go, this is a Philly. This is the experience that I expect to get. What if I could transform that? Because I've thought about this very deeply, right? What if I could make you a corn dog that was like a Philly? That would be out of control.
Yeah.
Right?
You got my attention.
Right? And so this is what I've done. And if somebody beats me to the punch on this, it's fine, but they won't because they don't understand my technique, right? If you take a quarter-pound sausage and you cut it lengthwise, now the bottom part is round, the top part is flat. So then when I go and I put the batter on there, and I'm not going to tell you the full technique, right? But then the top part is flat. Now I can put whatever I want on there, and it's not going to roll off. A traditional corn dog is round, so everything will roll off the bowl. No?
Mm-hmm.
So if you make it flat, I could put pulled pork in there. I could make it like a little miniature Philly, whatever. This is a cool thing. It's a cool way to go.
Yeah, I love it.
Right?
Love it.
But and so the problem that I have with almost every cooking show out there is they only tell you what, they don't tell you how. What you want to know is how, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what would make what my thesis is totally different. I don't care what, and I don't want you to care what. That's your deal. You can figure that out. What we're going to do together is explore why this thing works, and I'm going to explain to you how that thing works, right? So you got a Blackstone. You like it?
Love it.
You love it.
I love it.
LUV, love it, right?
LOVE, LUV, however you want to spell it.
So I would tell you that I have issues with the Blackstone.
Do you?
I do, absolutely, right? But I've eclipsed that issue, and I can help you do it too, if you want.
You have issues in making what you want to make on it?
No. The issue that I have is it doesn't get hot enough.
Oh.
And it doesn't get hot enough because the burners that are in there are slightly inferior burners. Got that. They're trying to make money, right?
Right.
And the amount of propane that they put out is inferior because it only puts out 5 psi. So what I've done is I've gone out there and I've modified it, and I get a regulator that pumps out 60 psi.
Wow.
Which is violent, which I have to tone down. It's too much, right? 'Cause it shoots flames everywhere. You know, it's killer.
And I can change the burners out underneath?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can change yours if you want.
Please do.
Dude, it's awesome because you can go online on Amazon, right? And you can buy jet burners that aren't massive. And so then you can adjust where you have really hot spots and cold spots on where you want them, right?
Yeah.
And then this is all technique driven, right? Because when you do stir fry, when you go into a Chinese restaurant, you like their stir fry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it just tastes different. You know why? Because they understood the technique.
Yeah.
So you have two techniques. It's called bao and chow. And so bao is that thing that you do around 350 degrees. Chow is around 1,000 degrees.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So you're really pumping out some major heat, right? So when you pump out a major heat, when you put a protein on there, like a beef per se, or chicken or pork or whatever, you know, it starts to get dark very fast, right? But that's that thing that you want because that's called the Maillard reaction. And that's just realigning of the amino acids that creates a Maillard that browns that thing that gives that really gangster flavor that you're looking for in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But you can harness all of that, right? So if you're doing a roast or something like that, you want all those brown bits that are in the bottom of the pan. That's money. And so when you go to culinary school,
right.
You'll get a culinary instructor like mine, like Chef Grant, who was a jerk. I didn't like him then, but I'll pseudo respect him now. But people will be like, I got this brown stuff in the bottom of my pot. He's like, what are you going to do with it? He's like, I'm going to scrape it out. Oh, you're that rich? You had that much money that you can just throw it out? You're just so rich because you live in New York and you're just going to throw this thing's money out, you know? He's like, no. You're going to take that thing and you're going to repurpose it, and then you're going to take that thing and you're going to deglaze, and then we're going to turn that thing into a beautiful sauce, and it's going to be a more elevated sauce than what you had before. We're going to show you how to do all of that. You know, that's what you do.
You know, have you heard of the term tahdig?
Tahdig, yes.
And I guess that's a sign of respect. If you go like an Afghan restaurant, I guess it's the big pot of rice that they're cooking. And when they get down to the bottom, if they can scrape it, because now you got all that butter and that whatever.
And different cultures call it different, like sofrito.
And I guess if you go to a restaurant and if they put that on the top, it's a sign of respect.
Wow, that's a big deal.
That they've scraped the bottom for you.
They think very highly of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that, like, people fight over that stuff. I'll fight people over it. I have no problem.
The same concept.
Yeah, yeah. And so in certain countries, they call it, like I said, the sofrito. You know, so each country, it's like, you know, that thing. So if you do a like a paella, you're definitely gonna fight over that thing.
That's Venezuelan paella.
Spanish. Portuguese.
Okay.
A little more southern Spain in Spain.
Oh, that's right. It is Spain. Okay. I was
You know,
confusing with something
the
else.
paellas are brilliant, man. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
I love doing them, and such a simple dish too. So,
Well, I'm also going to refer you to a lady named Paula Namchef
okay.
in the area that does a like at the table kind of podcast. She's
Nice.
also used to have a restaurant up in Nashville.
Okay.
She's a foodie enthusiast.
Yeah.
She'll probably have you on her show.
Nice.
I'm supposed to go over there too at some point, but
nice.
yeah, I'll make you that
We should
connection.
maybe get all together and cook, man. That's like,
Dude, I'll tell you on my Blackstone, the one thing I've been doing a lo mein, a chicken lo mein, and I love going to the Asian market. I'd love to go to the Asian market with you because I don't understand like 99% of the store.
the Far East Market.
Yeah, like
That's my boy, Mike.
Mike,
yeah, he's the owner of the restaurant. His brother owns the another one near the Arsenal.
I love those restaurants. I love those stores, man.
And so here I am. I went to the #1 culinary school in the entire nation. So I'm literally the smartest person in the kitchen. I gotta be, right? And so I go in there and I'm like, Mike, hey, I'm doing this, and this is how I'm doing my rice. And Mike is Asian. He's like, no, you're doing it wrong. I'm like, what? No. I'm supposed to be the smartest guy right now, man. He's like, you're doing it wrong, man. I'm like, so what do you think? He was like, it's not 2 to 1. It's 2.1 to 1.
Oh.
Do that with your water to your rice. I said, there's no way, dude. I'm going to do this in secret and figure it out, right? Dude, he was so right.
2.1 to 1.
So I built a strong relationship with Mike, man, and I love the Far East Market. So during COVID, there were a lot of people that were like, oh, Kroger's closed down. Oh, Publix is closed down. The international markets did not. Dude, I went to Middle Eastern markets. I went to the Asian markets. I went to the Indian markets, and I really just enjoyed myself during COVID because I was really cooking some of the stuff that I really like to cook and really enjoy cooking.
Yeah.
And so international dishes, man, and like I'm just really super into it, and I still go to those places all the time now, you know, because there's just like really great people in there and supporting the small business opportunities and stuff, you know. So I think it's always a super cool thing.
Yeah.
I wish the Indian market had my curry, but they don't because all the Indian restaurants scoop up the fresh curry, which is beautiful. It's great flavor. So,
well, Chef Maddog Maggert, it's been a pleasure having you, man.
Yeah, man. I guess we're out. So
yeah, I appreciate your time.
We can do a version 2 of this if you want and talk
Absolutely
about more relevant.
I think it'd be fun to go into the Asian market and have someone like you or have Mike explain to us, you know, where we're going wrong with some of the sauces. You know what I mean?
And he'll tell you, man. I was like, Mike, hey, what do you think about MSG, dude? He's like, yo, you put MSG on everything. You put MSG on Cheerio, best Cheerio ever. I'm like, Mike, man.
Oh, wow.
So my daughter's in college, and she's like making a little bit of money on the side, you know, and getting food because we still make ramen at home all the time, you know. It's like we never got out of that college thing.
Yeah.
It's like really elevated. Where we're using a bunch of cool stuff from the Far East Market. Yeah, that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that'd take away from your show, but maybe that's something we could add in there. Maybe as part of our town, so we could represent those small businesses.
Yeah, it'd be like a segment we throw into the podcast, right? Or you just, I actually have a brand called the Troy By Show.
Okay.
And that would be something I'd probably do under that brand.
Nice.
So it's not really a podcast,
I don't know how you're
right?
doing it, man.
Yeah.
Doing your thing and then doing all these videos
man.
and stuff, man.
Well, I appreciate your time, man. It's been great to meet you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
and
it's really
absolutely,
been a
this is only part 1.
Really? Yeah, that'd be cool.
All right, brother.
That'd be cool. Take it to another level.
All the best to you. Yeah.
Yeah, so all the listeners out there, check out the Korndog Cartel coming to you very, very soon. The truck's going to be done in about 5 weeks, they said.
5 weeks.
And so if you guys are interested in sausage, let me know. Check out the Sausages of Freedom. So we're going to continue to grow those names and those brands. And so
excellent.
We're going to be out on the streets.
Perfect, man. Hey, all the best.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thanks so much.
And we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Maddog Maggert. Out.